if the blockchain has any capacity, any value beyond money, and I think that it depends on money, but I think it will be to eventually replace notary systems and allow us to be able to trade property ownership on top of the blockchain. Telling of the story of all this anarcho-capitalists, voluntarists really, that left their countries from Australia and the United States, Canada, all over the world, the first world countries, all of them first world countries, to come and form a chosen community in Mexico. And what in the world made them think about that? A small community that is living by voluntary values and trying to build the Gulch that I think a lot of us would like to create. And that's the idea of the documentary.
Hello, this is Kurt Robinson from the Paradise Paradox. I'm here with Juan Galt. How's it going?
Good.
Okay, good. That's what I like to hear. That's the way you do it. So, Juan, tell me, what is the most interesting thing you are thinking about right now?
All right, I love that question. Thank you very much. Good interviewing skills, I'm telling you. Well, I'm fascinated by the fact that society, in order to function at a significant scale, needs to have a record of ownership of property and of trades of things, well, particularly property. So if you buy a house, you have a deed, and there's a history of who owned it before, and before that, and that's called a notary system. And the blockchain is essentially that, but decentralized and cryptographically secured and international, and that is something that I think if the blockchain has any capacity, any value beyond money, and I think that it depends on money, but I think it will be to eventually replace notary systems and allow us to be able to trade property ownership on top of the blockchain in a much more efficient way, and from whatever property ownership we have, sell shares or trade, or sort of infinitely divide property ownership wherever it makes sense. So I think it would be that idea, and I'm also fascinated by the fact that whenever you're talking about property, you're talking about how do you define what property is, what is a right to property and what is not, and when you get down to the nitty-gritty, it's a pretty complex topic to define. Okay, at what point do I homestead a piece of property? If I build a hut and then I leave, at what point is it not my property anymore? And is it okay for somebody else to come in and use it, or destroy it, or build something new on top of it? How does that work? And these rules by which we define property ownership are not necessarily compatible, especially when they're built on isolated systems. So when these systems start conflicting over a particular asset, that is very interesting. That's kind of what happens in cross-jurisdiction trades, and is one of the reasons why Satoshi Nakamoto arguably built this, and a lot of the cyberpunks before that argued that this type of technology would allow cross-border property ownership and jurisdictional sort of arbitrage to some degree. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Okay, sounds like fun. Sounds like something fun to do on the weekend with a couple of friends, dividing up the world's property and planting it on the blockchain. Yeah. So
I would own the Vatican immediately. The Vatican.
Okay. It's a tactical acquisition in the game of Risk. I think the Vatican. Yeah. So you've also been working on this documentary about expatriate life, voluntary. I'll let you explain it. What's the documentary about?
Sure. So the documentary is called "The Anarcho-Capitalist's Life in Acapulco," and the name might change soon, but you can find it at ancapdoc.disruptech.info, or just go to disruptech.info and you'll find the information there. and it's basically a telling of the story of all this anarcho-capitalists, voluntarists, really, that left their countries from Australia and the United States, Canada, all over the world, the first world countries, all of them first world countries, to come and form a chosen community in Mexico. And what in the world made them think about that, and how they put the energy into the momentum and the journey to come to Acapulco, and then the actual experience of building this community is sort of what I'm talking about. And I also want to talk a lot about the practical sort of tools and strategies that we've developed to actually expatriate to a Spanish country like Mexico, to a city like Acapulco. And so there's a significant focus on that in the documentary, and I think it's going to be sort of a continual series. If people are interested and people continue to donate and support the documentary, then it'll be a continuous kind of vlog or sort of series of episodes on this experience of building a chosen tribe, a small community that is living by voluntary values and trying to build the Gulch that I think a lot of us would like to create, and why people love Bitcoin and why people sort of move to other cities is because we want to create that community and that system that where we agree at least with the methodology on how to what's property and what's right and what's wrong, and how to live in peace and prosper and all that. So that's the idea of the documentary, and should be out by the end of January. And if you'd like to support this, throw me some Bitcoins, and we'll put it to good use. Thank you.
Nice. Okay, so from one perspective, it sounds like it's somewhat ideological. From another perspective, it almost sounds like you're working on a sort of how-to, like it's going to include a lot of tips and tricks on how to move.
Yeah, it's gonna be very practical. It's gonna have a lot of. The purpose is to give people an objective view on this specific community, which is the Acapulco community, and the second is to allow them to just save time and research and avoid some of the issues that we've had. So you just get there, land, and you're good. And yeah, so it definitely, and it's going to be broad enough that it's going to help expats that are not even voluntarists or don't even know what this stuff is, to be able to sort of move to another world if they want to do such a thing.
Yeah, you're living that very same life that you're writing making this documentary about. Sorry, what age did you leave Colombia?
I was 16.
Okay. And I imagine you moved with your parents, and they probably had to work their asses off to get into Canada. Is that right?
More or less, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just thinking, you must get a lot of, maybe you get some criticism from your family saying, "What are you doing? We've worked so hard to get out of this developing nation, and now you're trying to go back." Is that ever a criticism that you get?
They've expressed concern. Yeah, they've expressed sort of like, but everybody expresses concern. Everybody fears for everything, especially like I don't know, my parents and people's parents. I mean, there's a lot of fear in people's hearts, and I think that this is a very exciting opportunity to create something new and create something that's potentially powerful and we can replicate in other communities. The first worlds are great, but my family, people in my family are very indebted in Canada, and the school system is very much a debt-based kind of slavery system. The academic system is, good in mathematics, good in engineering to some degree, terrible for entrepreneurship, terrible for ethics, terrible for social sort of statistical analysis and political discourse. So it's very propagandized, and so the idea that you can go to the Canada and the States and study and learn and become a great person, yeah, you certainly can. University is not necessarily going to be there, the path, and it's not, the American dream is not all roses. I think that today with the internet and with Bitcoin and with things in cyberspace, the way that it's evolving, you don't really are that attached to a country anymore, and you know. So I mean, I learned the language, and I certainly appreciate that, and I'm very, very happy that I speak English. But I mean, I don't have any particular loyalty to any particular piece of land or nationality. So I don't really give a shit.
I guess you know, you can make yourself at home wherever you go, and I guess it's kind of like people have this perception, like if you move a city, they don't see like you're losing your nationality or something. If I move from Sydney to Melbourne, people don't say, well, what are you doing? You know, that's a completely different country or something like that. But if you move within a country, even to a different country, even if it's like a similar distance away, they will see that as they have a very different perception of that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the only way that I think you can really be happy is A, if you're doing what you want to do, B, if you're healthy, and C, if you are surrounded by people whose values, whose methodology for life you respect and they respect yours. And unfortunately, statistically, you know, there's, for enough people, their family is not the case, the place they were born in is not the case, that's not the environment that they have. And so the ability and freedom to create that environment and move to another environment, it's an absolutely necessary option and thing that people really should consider doing if they're interested in that kind of stuff, which I think everybody is.
There are some technologies that are working on things like that, blockchain-based systems like BitNation, which is, it looks like they'll provide a kind of blockchain international passport eventually, so people can identify themselves and travel internationally. Do you have some thoughts on ways we can use blockchain technology to solve those problems, like make the world more borderless?
I don't think that creating a kind of international ID is going to particularly help. I don't know what the nation is doing. I know broadly their ideals, and I certainly think that there's governance systems that can be decentralized and voluntary, and that can function very well, and that can do what the governments have. Like, governments have monopolized this notary system and this fundamental need in society to record property ownership. They've monopolized it, and then they've just turned it into this horrible bureaucratic beast. But now that we have technology like blockchains to be able to escape that system, we can create things that are actually much more efficient and very much free market based. If we pay attention, definitely, right? You gotta be careful where you put your money and all that. So, ideas to create cross-border, facilitate cross-border. I mean, there's one particular idea called the Halo smart contract, and I wrote an article on this on Brave New Coin, and it's about it's a 2 of 2 multi-signature smart contract transaction, where if I want to buy a microphone from you, let's say, and you're in the States, and I have Bitcoin. Well, let's say the microphone is worth $50, and we don't know each other. There's no trust, there's no reputation, there's no knowledge of each other. But there's a market of potential. So I put $50 worth of Bitcoin in this 2 of 2 multi-sig contract, and then I put another 50 in the same contract. And then you put 50 in the same contract, and then you send me the mic. Now, when the mic arrives, now there's $150 in escrow that we both need to agree to be able to release it. If we both agree that the transaction, like I've gotten the mic is good, then I sign the transaction, sends you $50, and I get my $50 back, and then you get your $50 back. If I disagree, then I have no win potential because the cost of the microphone is locked in this account that you have control over, right? And you have no incentive to cheat me because your $50, which is the value of the mic, is also locked in there. So we have to interact with each other, and we have to negotiate, and there is no incentive to cheat each other because we've put up equal collateral to the potential risk. And I think that's a very powerful smart contract that is not being used. It's already designed, BitHalo, it's already designed, it's usable, and people are not really using it. There's not much of a market for it, and I can't fathom why. Part of it may be because the developer hasn't open sourced it. It's supposed to be like if people ask him, he'll show them the code, but he'll sort of model it a little bit. So if it was open source, it might have gotten further ahead already. But the potential is there and the opportunity is there. I think that's the simplest smart contract that I can think of to bypass borders and lack of knowledge and lack of trust is that one, I think.
Yeah, that's really good. It's an angle I wouldn't have thought of, because you're talking about just trading beyond borders, trading where there's that lack of trust. That's cool. All right. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for sharing us your interesting thoughts. Of course, you can read Juan's articles on Brave New Coin, Cointelegraph. You have a YouTube channel now as well?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. We'll put the link in the description there. Thanks.